ropa vieja, tostones, and giraffes in Africa. This week, we're in Cuba and Tanzania with travel legend Joseph Rosendo.
Traveling the world to bring you delicious dishes, tasty beverages, and interesting experiences. This is the Destination Eat Drink Podcast on the Radio Misfits Podcast Network.
I'm Brent Peterson. Welcome to Destination Eat Drink, the travel podcast for foodies. Destination Eat Drink is for foodies who like to travel and travelers who love to eat. And this week, it's one of the icons of travel TV, Joseph Rosendo, talking about the new season of his show, Steppin' Out. But first, take a moment, rate and review the podcast. It really helps the show, and it helps other foodie travelers just like you find Destination Eat Drink. If there was a Mount Rushmore of travel TV, Joseph Rosendo would certainly be on it. He's won 6 Emmys, 42 Telly Awards, and multiple other awards, including France's Medal d'Or de Tourisme. His latest show, Steppin' Out, is in its 2nd season and is airing now on PBS. You can learn more at josephRosendo.com. Joseph tells me about visiting Cuba, where his grandfather is from, vibrant Malaysia, and Tanzania, where he saw an incredible assortment of wildlife. Plus, he shares the food that he enjoyed along the way. And I'm starving, so let's eat.
Destination Eat Drink.
Joseph Rosendo, welcome back to Destination Eat Drink. It's great to have you back on the show to talk about season 2 of Steppin' Out.
Yeah, it's great to be speaking with you, Brent. I hope you're having a good time where you are.
Yeah, Portugal's lovely this time of year, and California's lovely all times of year, so I'm sure you're enjoying it too.
Right.
I've been lucky enough to watch the new season of Steppin' Out, and boy, I got to say, you know, you've been doing this for a long time. I think you've even topped yourself on this one. What a fantastic season you've just put out.
Thank you so much. I agree with you, actually. I did Travel Scope for 12 seasons, 135 shows, and then season 1, I believe you saw season 1 of Stepping Out. And season 2, we just completed shooting and we're still in the final stages of editing and about to release to step out into season 3 of this series. And I agree with you. I think that Stepping Out is a step above even Travel Scope, and Travel Scope did pretty good with 6 Emmys and 50 Telly Awards and all those many years of airing. And Travel Scope is still airing around the country and around in Canada and most likely internationally too. We're working on getting some international distribution for Travel Scope, so that should be in the works. You may be able to watch me there in Portugal, but that's the goal anyway.
That would be great because it's not easy to get PBS shows here in Portugal. So, yeah, it would be great to be able to see some of those. I wish PBS would do a more international thing. That would be great. But let's talk a little bit about the new season, because I want to hop into Cuba first, because it's fascinating to me for several reasons. One, on a personal level, I've never been there, so I'm always excited to, get as much into my brain as I can about Cuba. But for you, it must have been super exciting because you have Cuban heritage. Tell me a little bit about going back and revisiting your heritage in Cuba.
Well, I had started the search, if you will, following my grandfather, Carlos Lasso, who was a cigar maker in Tampa when he came to the United States after the turn of the century, and we're talking about last century. And so I went to Tampa and did a show on him following his footsteps in Tampa, and the family in Tampa, which is where my mother is family from. Me and my siblings were born in Miami, but I went back to Tampa and shot a show. It was there for the Gasparilla Festival, and also followed in my grandfather's footsteps through Ybor City and the Cuban sections of Tampa, and continued that path or that journey when we went to Cuba this last March, a year ago, and covered the Havana and Pinar del Rio, which is where my grandfather was from. He was from Pinar del Rio, which is the tobacco center of Cuba. It's where all the tobacco is grown, and his family had a tobacco finca, a tobacco farm there. And when he came to the United States, he went to Tampa and worked as a blender of tobaccos for the Tampa cigar factory in Tampa. And so that was a interesting experience. It was fabulous to be there. It's fabulous to be in Cuba. And I start to recognize a lot of my own traits, and I certainly feel very comfortable with the people and their energies and the way they speak Spanish and the kind of basically spirit that they have. So it was great to be there. Got some good food. I know you want to cover some of the food. You know, Cuba is always going through some kind of trial and tribulations because of the United States boycott of 60 years that continues to roll along and hinder the Cuban people from their peace and prosperity. And so when I was there, I did have some great food. I mean, we had some very traditional foods, tostones, which are plantains, kind of a banana family. People know it as plantain chips, and they get it at Cuban-like restaurants here in the United States. But we had that there. That's basically a squashed piece of a banana. If you think of the plantain as being like that, and they makes a flat little mini tortilla, which then you fry up, and it's wonderful. So that we had ropa vieja, which means actually old clothes. And what ropa vieja is shredded beef with all sorts of different Cuban spices, yellow rice, which is very popular, and arroz con pollo, which is yellow rice and chicken normally. So we had some very traditional. There's a lot of fish when we were in Havana, and when we got to Pinar del Rio, more meat dishes. But Cuban food is very simple. Platanos is a mainstay, as it is throughout all of the Caribbean, and yuca, another mainstay, is a cassava, basically. I even worked the field with one of the farmers there when I was there. If you saw the Cuba show, you saw me doing that. And it was great. And then, there are a number of other attractions to Havana, particularly, and the rest of Cuba. Unfortunately, Americans are not allowed to fly directly to any other part of Cuba now. You have to go to Havana and then take a bus or rent a car or whatever you have to do. And, the United States continues to make it difficult for Americans to travel comfortably in Cuba. And it's one of my pet peeves, and certainly I think, an American shame that we've continued a boycott against this country for 60 years when we deal with China and Vietnam and Cambodia and other socialist and communist countries. So that's my political comment for the day.
Yeah, it looked like a decade and a half ago, that it was going to start to open up a little bit, and these little tiny steps were happening, and then political winds changed in the United States, and that door slammed shut, unfortunately, which is why it's so great that you got to go there and see this beautiful country.
And I got to go as a journalist and actually do a show, and we covered a lot of. We covered the markets. We covered the Havana at night. We covered the sights. We went to a dance recital with a fabulous group there, and we took a walk along the Malecon and was there with the sunset and had a cigar sitting on the wall. The Malecon being the board, basically the oceanside walk that goes from the middle of Havana all the way down into the other residential areas of Havana. So it was beautiful, yeah. And Havana Vieja is nice. It was helped revitalized by the European community. So that is where most of the tourists go. But just walk a couple of streets off of Havana Vieja, and you're in the heart of Havana, and you're in the heart of Cuba, and you'll see the conditions that Cubans have to live in. So that I certainly recommend anybody who has a chance to go to Havana. And our underwriter for Joseph Rosendo's Stepping Out season 1 through 3, Rhodes Scholar, is got a wonderful tour to Havana that they give people, where you really do get to see, meet the people and help and learn. And it's, we have to travel under the auspices of helping the Cuban people. You can't do anything to help the Cuban government. You have to help the people. So all their experiences that they have are interactions with Cuban people in casa particulars and in small restaurants and local activities and events. Nothing run by the government. So even going to Hemingway's house is suspect. So anyway, so it's a strange world that we live in, and the continuing boycott is a good example of that. But there was some great food. Like I say, very traditional. This season was filled with great food, particularly in our Asian countries. We traveled to Malaysia and Taiwan. Malaysia particularly is amazing. Every state you go to has its own specialties. And breakfast in the morning's a treat with a teh tarik, which is kind of a pulled tea with milk and plenty of condensed milk, so there's plenty of sweetener in there, and nasi lemak, which are these banana wrapped meat and rice dishes. And then, of course, Malaysia being multicultural with the Indians and the Chinese and the indigenous people, you have a full menu, a few choice of different exotic foods that you can try while you're there. So if someone's doing if you got a real foodie who wants to really have a new experience, I would definitely recommend Malaysia. We're planning to go back this year and do another show on Malaysia covering Sabah and Sarawak, the former Borneo. And then we went back for our 15th show in Taiwan. And you can't ever go to Taiwan without eating some fabulous food, all kinds of noodle dishes, and of course, and then soups and seafood, magnificent seafood all throughout all of Taiwan. Yeah, it was great to go back for the 15th time. I hope we'll be able to go back again this year and cover another aspect of Taiwan. But it gives you an idea of how diverse that country is. If I've been there 15 times and have never covered the same thing twice, so that's pretty amazing.
Yeah, you are just holding the flag up for Taiwan. I mean, I've had you on the show before, and you were talking about how much you love Taiwan, and you've done all these episodes on Taiwan. What is it? Is it the diversity, the friendliness of the people, the beautiful landscapes that keeps you coming back to Taiwan over and over again?
It's all of that, all the above. I mean, Taiwan is a very diverse for an island country. It has islands on its islands, so you can go out to the islands where indigenous people live. They have 14 different indigenous tribes in Taiwan, plus the Han Chinese, of course, which were the people who came over back in the early days. And then, of course, you had the big influx after the Chinese Civil War. And you had Chiang Kai-shek and the people from China bring over a lot of the treasures of China. What I really love about Taiwan is that if you really want a China experience, if you want to go to China, go to Taiwan, because that's where the heart and soul of the Chinese people still remains and is alive and well. All the spiritual side of the Chinese people, all their traditions and customs, unadulterated by any kind of cultural revolutions or the kinds of things that they went through in China proper. So, and people it's a prosperous country. There's lots and lots of agriculture. Rice, of course, course, a major product of the country. So most every dish you can have will either have rice or noodles with it, and they're fantastic. People have been. We spent some time with a family that had been making there for generations, 3 generations of family that all they did make noodles, and they're delicious noodles actually. And some, they do. They have a lot of different aspects in the country too. It's a very mountainous country, so you have Toroco Gorge, which is kind of their version of our Grand Canyon. And then you have beautiful mountain villages that you can visit. Once again, many of them places where you'll find the indigenous people, which have their own culture, their own songs, their own language, their own foods. It's just in a small country, it is crazy diverse, and a million festivals. I mean, whenever you go, there'll be a festival going on somewhere. There are national festivals. There are festivals, pilgrimages, honoring one of their gods, Matsu, and so yeah, it's a wonderful country. If you're not familiar with Asia, it's a wonderful place to start because Americans would feel very comfortable. They love Americans. Of course, they're constantly under threat by the Chinese. And so if it wasn't for the United States, they probably wouldn't be even existing. So so they love Americans, and they're extremely friendly, and just really know how to have a good time. And there's things to do for all the ages, not just for people who are older and want to have a more controlled type of experience, a tour. There's a lot of lively nightlife in Taipei and throughout any of the major cities. Traveling around the country by train is a wonderful thing to do. There are all sorts of different kinds of train experiences you can have, high speed, local trains, the small little trains that go up into the mountain communities. So there's just a ton of stuff to do. You could, anything that in your interest, nature, they have national parks. They have a number of national parks or national scenic areas. I came back from the Elan coast, up in the northeast coast in Elan, National Scenic Area. That's what our last show was on. And we found all sorts of wonderful things, cultural centers where you could learn how to dance opera. I tried my hand at that and wasn't very successful at it, but at least it was fun to do.
Nice. Well, all right. So we're gonna pop all over the planet here because you jumped all over the planet on this season. And the next place I want to talk about is Tanzania, another place where I haven't been before. I was just struck at all the parks that you went to and all of the amazing animals that you got up close with, especially the giraffes, but man, so many cool animals that you can see. Is this something that's available to regular people? Like if I were to go there without a film crew, could I have the same kind of experience that you did, Joseph?
Absolutely. I went with a group called Holbrook Travel, and they're a family-run operation that's been around for 50 years. And Andrea Holbrook was with us on the trip as well. As a matter of fact, or she was on her own trip, and we were doing our thing. It's the way you have to see the country. You go with a guide and you visit their national parks. I've never had an experience like I've had several safari experiences in my career, but never anything like the Tanzania experience. I've never so many animals. We would talk about layers of animals, where you would sit in a open area or in a plains area, and you'd see elephants and giraffes and warthogs and guinea hens and baboons and birds. I mean, it was like layers and layers of animals. I mean, I've never seen the number and the accessibility to them. And since they're in their natural habitat, they're comfortable being where they are, and they're not really affected by your presence. They're acclimatized enough to tourists coming in visiting them. But the way that the visits in the Serengeti and some of the other national parks are handled are really so animal and ecologically friendly that impacting the animals is the last thing that you'll do, and you're basically hiding out when and viewing the animals doing what they do, and it's wonderful that they feel comfortable enough to live their life with any kind of restraint. And you don't get that in some of the game parks around Africa, where they've been basically constructed and animals have been brought in, which is wonderful. It's a wonderful way to conserve the natural wildlife, the wildlife of Africa. We wouldn't even have any wildlife if it wasn't for tourism, I believe. And but Tanzania is something else. We went to 4 of their over 20 national parks, and all of the national parks have something special to offer. Of course, the Serengeti is the famous one. We were there in the spring, so everything it truly was the green hills of Africa. And the people, never mind the animals. Okay, let's forget about that. Let's move over to the Maasai and all the other tribes that are in the area. The people who live in the cities and the life they have. We went to a market. I love going to markets and experiencing the cities and the life of the people there. So that was another experience all by itself. So it's just, I would, whatever trip you were thinking of taking somewhere else, just cancel that and plan your trip to Tanzania. Because that's more than a bucket list. That's a must list. You will not ever have any experience like that anywhere, because it is a very special and unique experience.
It looked amazing too, and I'm glad you brought up the market, because I loved when you were walking through the market. What kind of food do you get in Tanzania? What kind of stuff did you enjoy?
They have lots of different local foods. Plenty of meat dishes, but also plenty of fish dishes too. So they were always on the menu. A lot of different sauces. Not very spicy food that I found. Wasn't spicy for me, but it was very. Very, a lot of vegetables too that are part of the cuisine. I mean, like in the market, you'll see all kinds of different vegetables, cabbages and carrots, and to complement all of their meat and fish dishes. It's hard for me to describe it beyond it being foods that have plenty of sauce and flavor to them. I eat a lot of fish, so I particularly like the fact that there was quite a large offering of that on the menu. And fruits, of course, lots of fruits, all kinds of different fruits. So so that's always a part of every meal is some kind of a fruit dessert or something like that.
Well, Joseph, before I let you go, you mentioned you got season 3. It sounds like in your pocket, you're thinking about it. Can you give us a little idea what you're planning for season 3?
Well, we're always looking for. We're going to probably try to find some places close to home in the United States and support some of the destinations here in the United States. We got that on our agenda. And have done some outreach in that area. We've also working with Malaysia again, as I mentioned, this time covering Borneo, the former Borneo, Sabah, and Sarawak, their states in the former Borneo. So it'll be pretty darn exotic and with a natural emphasis, like they have orangutan sanctuaries and that kind of thing there, and you stay in river lodges, and it has a real rough and ready kind of experience there. So we're looking forward to that, plus covering the other aspects of that part of Malaysia as well. And then, I'm always looking to go back to Taiwan, so we'll see how that goes. But and we have some feelers out on destinations in France. I hope to be working with the folks from La Boat again, the company that has boats throughout Europe and in Canada. And you basically drive your own boat. There's a kitchen on board and accommodations, and through either canals. You're either going down through canals or with going through the locks of the canals, or you're going through some of the smaller and less inhabited or less trafficked rivers of Europe. And they're also in Great Britain and Ireland as well. And one of our shows for season 2, as you perhaps saw, was with the La Boat people on the River Shannon, and we're basically covering the center, the heartland of Ireland, and we did it by being on the boat and stopping off at the little villages along the way, and covering the history and the life in that part of Ireland. So those are a couple of things we're working on. We're with the La Boat people. We hope to put something together for Friuli, Venezia Giulia, one of the states of Italy, up in the north, adjacent to Austria. And that would be great. They have boats there, and I'd love to do something like that with them.
Fantastic. I love all the places that you go, of course, but it's your perspective, your point of view that really makes the show exciting. So thanks for everything you do, Joseph. We'll have a link to the show in the show notes.
Can I give out my website here?
Yeah. Joseph Rosendo Presents.
It's actually josephresendo.com. That's the new website.
Oh, you got
travels. Okay. And we still have travelscope.net too. So you can see the old Travelscope shows at travelscope.net, or go to josephresendo.com. And then you can find us online, of course, on all the media sites, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, all of them either under Travelscope, Joseph Rosendo, or Joseph Rosendo Presents in that case.
Okay, very good. josephresendo.com. Look him up there. Joseph, I always ask you, you've been on the show several times and you've been very generous with your time, but I always ask you to close out the show with the same way that you close out your show, with that quote from Mark Twain. Would you gift us that again this time?
Sure. I always love to say at the end of every Stepping Out show, I've added to it a little bit, but it's, I like to say, until we meet again, remember the words of Mark Twain: travel is fatal to prejudice, bigotry, and narrow-mindedness. And may your next adventure always be your best.
Perfect. Inspiring. Thank you, Joseph.
Talk to you. Take care.
Okay. That's the one and only Joseph Rosendo. Like he said, you can learn more at josephresendo.com. And if you want to hear more from my conversation with Joseph, check out my Substack, where members have access to the full interview. Joseph tells me about being in Iceland for the summer solstice, where they get almost 24 hours of daylight, and sampling the local fermented shark. Become a member and listen at destinationeatdrink.substack.com. Well, that's it for this week. Next week, crispy pastries in Naples, pho at 5 a.m., and panicking over a forgotten pastel de nata with Daryl and Mindy Hirsch, the two food trippers. Until then, get over to destinationeatdrink.com, where I've got tons of new foodie travel stuff, including the unique Bruges waffle. You've probably heard of Belgian waffles, maybe even heard of Brussels waffles and Liège waffles, but there's another waffle you can only get in Bruges. Read about it at destinationeatdrink.com/blog. I've also got a brand new video out. This one is about the medieval town of Medina, Malta. I explore some centuries-old ancient catacombs and have an amazing farm-to-table dining experience. Watch that video by clicking on the video tab at destinationeatdrink.com, or you can go to my YouTube channel. That's youtube.com/@destinationeatdrink946. I've also got dozens of foodie travel guide ebooks for you to download, all the best things to do, dishes and drinks, everything you need to plan a delicious trip to Lisbon or Porto, Seville or San Sebastian, and lots more. Check them out at buymeacoffee.com/Destination Eat Drink. Destination Eat Drink is distributed by the Radio Misfits Podcast Network and Ed Silla. Thanks, Ed. I'm Brent Peterson. I'll see you down the road.
Join us next week for another culinary adventure on Destination Eat Drink, a presentation of the Radio Misfits Podcast Network.